Let's explore no self versus Dzogchen, and thus clear the confusion. This evening's lesson is drawn from my adaptation of the question of an individual on Reddit titled, "Who Rests as Open Awareness?" If thoughts are not self, the individual writes, then who decides to rest as open awareness and witness all conditions? And so we see the issue of not self. Let's continue. I.e., or I.G., thoughts, sensations, etc. arise and pass away, and one is not to identify with this conditioned phenomena. Open awareness does not feel like a self. It is very neutral, peaceful, unconditioned, unchanging, etc. But is it conditioned phenomena? Nature itself that decides to rest in this open awareness? Aha, a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, there was just a book written about it by a neuroscientist. What was the name of the book? Free will. Let's continue. This really confuses me, and I would appreciate any input that can be offered to clear up my misunderstandings. Thanks. So, first of all, this confusion is easily solved without the use of pat answers. Number two, this confusion is not the result of some moral failing or intellectual laziness on the part of the person asking it. It is an indictment on his teachers and on our culture at large. Let's continue. Let's explore the Four Noble Truths and the actual purpose of Buddhism. From a certain point of view, well, let's just jump back. Ask any biologist and they will tell you there are many stressors. Some are circumstantial stressors, some stressors are physical, some stressors are interpersonal, and some stressors are mental. We evolved the capacity to perceive stress as a survival mechanism. No, we don't experience stress because we believe in a self. Because animals that do not have the capacity to think in terms of words also experience stress. Stress predates the evolutionary capacity to think in terms of words. Then what then is the cause of stress? Simple. Very complex life forms, such as you and me, have two reward systems. We have a dopamine-oriented reward system that seeks pleasure. We have an oxytocin-oriented reward system that seeks meaning. So pleasure typically through reproduction and that which supports reproduction, hydrating, eating food, receiving shelter, cooling when it's warm, warming when it's cool, sleeping. These things we are designed to receive pleasure from. Natural selection selects for procreation. Anything that leads to procreation will lead to that trait being passed on to the next generation. Anything that undermines procreation will prevent that trait itself from being passed on to the next generation. Simply because if it doesn't mate, it's lost. There's no way to get it to the next generation. So we have this very, very, very powerful dopamine-oriented drive, but it's never designed to lead to peace. It's never designed to lead to fulfillment. Our genes are real slave drivers, and they want us to spread them. And so continual restlessness, continual drama, continual promiscuity, continually chasing one sexual adventure after another, increases the probability of the genetic material being passed on to the next generation. It's kind of like the Terminator. It can't be reasoned with, it can't be stopped, and absolutely will not stop until you are dead. Of course, that was a very ham-handed paraphrase for my fellow geeks. I apologize. But we also have a drive that's designed for cooperation and that seeks fulfillment through relationships, professional, personal, platonic, and intimate. And these two systems are at odds. We can be liberated not from the presence of our dopamine-oriented drive, but from the tyranny of our dopamine-oriented drive. It's still there. It's supposed to be there. It's the thing that makes us run really fast when we are being chased by a predator, which is a good thing. I think we'll all agree. The liberation the Buddha offers us is not liberation from the presence of our dopamine-oriented drives, but their tyranny. So here's a very neat example of the three primary drives. They could be the shoving impulse, the pulling impulse, and the clinging impulse. A more humorous example of our primary drives could be the 6 F's. When encountering anything, being, or phenomena, the very basement of our brain asks 6 questions. Hey, that thing over there, should I fuck it? Should I feed on it? Should I fight it? Should I flee from it? Should I faint before it? Should I fawn over it? These are primary survival drives. When they are completely absent, they reduce our chance for survival. When they dominate us, they reduce our chance of peace and fulfillment. So the question is, how do we let them be present without controlling us? And that's where we have the Eightfold Path. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything is crap, including meditation teachers. 90% of them have been taught and sincerely believe that it's a really good thing to be rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and sometimes cruel. They have been taught to believe this. It's very rare that someone is able to evolve beyond that. And if you have the good fortune to find a teacher who has chosen to not only walk the path of being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind, but has had a modicum of success conditioning themselves to the path, then you are really fortunate, and you would really it would really benefit you to learn from that teacher. Upon the Eightfold Path, it's actually very simple. 50% pertains to loving kindness, 50% pertains to the wisdom of letting go. The second, third, fourth, and fifth folds of the Eightfold Path pertain to wishing love, kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. Loving kindness. They're the best. Deal with observing change in our life that helps us to let go. Harnessing the power of love's centered spontaneity to flow from the effortless effort of said centered spontaneity. To then notice as we breathe in harmony with our sympathetic nervous system, and to relax in harmony with our exhalation due to our parasympathetic nervous system. That's simply the Buddhist path. Practice it, and that's liberation. Master it, and that's enlightenment. Mastering it is simple. Once you've mastered sitting, which you can do in like 16 weeks, although it takes 16 weeks to master sitting, you can master the intellectual aspect of the path in 7 days. In simply 2 sessions a day. So this is not insurmountable. Now, there are a lot of people, some lazy-minded and some, what's the word I'm looking for? Malicious, who keep moving the goalposts and exaggerating what enlightenment is and what enlightenment isn't, because doing so because there are certain people who seek to exploit others either financially or emotionally by crushing them under the heel of their boot, and that's unfortunate. Fortunately, most people who are mistaken aren't that way. They're just lazy-minded. So let's move forward. No self. Was it really supposed to be literal, or is it figurative? For those on the path of being rigid, the perception of something as being figurative is almost impossible. For those who are traversing the path of flexibility, it's quite... When we traverse the path of flexibility, our minds are sufficiently nimble to notice that, yes, some things are literal and some things are figurative, and sometimes they're both at the same time. That idea will make someone who's rigid poop themselves, and nobody wants that. So once again, why is the confusion? And I already touched on this. Number one, there are many good-hearted, wise teachers for whom English is a second or a third or a fourth or a fifth language. For me, English is my first language. Now, I have a shit ton of brain damage. I am autistic. I have ADHD, compounded by fetal alcohol exposure, birth trauma brain damage, CPTSD, and Epstein-Barr. So I got a shit ton of brain damage, and it's taking me my entire life to accumulate sufficient masteries in the nuance of communication to be a somewhat effective teacher. For someone who wasn't raised in this culture, despite their good-heartedness, they can sometimes communicate in a clunky way that loses people who already are stuck in being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. They may be trying to evolve beyond that, but they're still limited by their rigidity, and because of the rigidity and the lack of nuance and the mastery of English in some teachers, confusion really abounds. But that's not always the case. Some teachers are just lazy-minded, and they might have mastered English. They might have mastered American culture to the point of being able to speak intelligently, perhaps about Star Trek and Game of Thrones and Tom Sawyer and all that really good stuff. But if their training in the Buddhist teachings was through the lens of being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, then it's going to hinder their comprehension of the teachings, no less their ability to teach it. For instance, the late Renzai Renzai Zen meditation teacher was horribly abused by his teacher. Back then, people didn't know about neurodivergence, and if someone seemed to be wandering, they were taught to beat it out of them. But you can't beat neurodivergence out of somebody. And so sometimes they were ignorant, and sometimes they were cruel, but these people were imperfect students of imperfect teachers, and there is a great room for confusion. And some people aren't just malicious. Some people feel that the quicker someone becomes a Buddha, the quicker they no longer need their teachers, and they're out a student. They're out a source of income. Some people just want to feel important. They make themselves feel important by making others feel unimportant, either through moving the goalposts and exaggerating what enlightenment is, or by just obscuring the teachings to such a degree that their students are utterly confused and just look at them like they're gods among men. And for some people, that's more important than anything else, which is truly tragic because, once again, loving kindness is 50% of the Buddhist path. And if we sacrifice our journey, if we offer our Buddhist journey on the altar of self-importance, we are really shooting ourselves in the foot. So let's explore the neuromechanics of Dzogchen. We're going to start off with broad brushstrokes. And then as we get into this evening's practice, we will explore a bit more of the minutia. I'm not doing this to string you along, but just because I found that if you don't start with broad brushstrokes, if you start with minutia, people get really, really, really confused. So let's look at the neuromechanics of Dzogchen. We evolved in such a way as to possess an autonomic nervous system. It's not in our skull, it's actually in our spinal cord. This is verified by state-of-the-art neuroscience. The portion of our autonomic nervous system that is ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord is wired not for the either extreme of mind blanking or concentration. Instead, it's wired to simply notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. It is wired to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. It is also wired to notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. It's wired to notice the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. A very reasonable question is, what do we do with all the stuff that we notice? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are automatically accessing the parasympathetic facet, the parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower lumbar region as well as the tippy top of the cervical region of that same spinal cord. And it evolved to both physically relax and mentally release. But what has that to do with no self? Simply this. First, let's explore it literally. Then we'll explore it figuratively. Bear with me. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. Now, let's sprinkle on some figures of speech. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. But what is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn? Wait, there's more. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation can begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as if it had never been born. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation can begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as if it simply was not us. No self, birthlessness, deathlessness, emptiness, they're all metaphors to describe the visceral reaction that we have when we relax into our exhalation. Now remember the words, remember the teachings of the great South Indian philosopher Nagarjuna. There are the conventional truths that we perceive through mindfulness. There are the ultimate truths we perceive through meditation. Just as we need to both inhale and exhale, just as a bird needs both its wings to fly, we need both conventional perception and ultimate release. So, what is open awareness? Tuku Tundup did a very good job of exploring this. When we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as vast openness or vast open space. So awareness and openness are two different things. Awareness as we breathe in, and we experience openness as we breathe out. And that reminds us of our Mahamudra brothers who teach clear light. As we breathe in, we perceive clearly. As we breathe out, that which we perceive could feel as if it was as non-graspable as if it was only comprised of light. So we don't have to worry about theory of self. We don't have to worry about the fact that neuroscientists are still debating where our sense of self comes from or what consciousness is. That was never the Buddha's process. Remember, in the second to the final passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha promised that it's possible to master his path in less than 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. No one can cobble together a PhD in 7 days. Therefore, we must conclude that the Buddha's path does not require pseudo-intellectual gymnastics. If no self was literal, it would require pseudo-intellectual gymnastics. If it's figurative, it's child's play. You can condition yourself over the span of 16 weeks to gradually grow accustomed to meditation. 5 minutes every 12 hours the first week, 10 minutes every 12 hours the second week, 15 minutes every 12 hours the third week. Progress in that manner, and by the time you have completed your 16th week, 75-minute sessions of meditation will have gently and incrementally, what's the word I'm looking for? Insinuated themselves into your life. If during that whole time you've been attending these live streams, perhaps 5 minutes every 12 hours the first week, either live or recorded because YouTube's good at that, 10 minutes twice a day the second week, so forth and so forth, then it's quite conceivable that by the conclusion of your 16th week, you could have mastered the Buddha's path. It's just that simple. So these are the broad brushstrokes with a little bit of fine brushstrokes sprinkled in because I'm very silly that way. Now we can really get into the minutia and not just intellectualize it, but viscerally practice it together after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For many decades, my life has been structured by the final meditation manual of the great Tibetan saint Za Paltrul Rinpoche. This final meditation manual is much more liberal than the meditation manual he wrote as a very young man. And yet, this is the meditation manual that the Dalai Lama lauds as both a complete path and very much like an elixir for reviving the dead. Don't worry, it won't make you a zombie. This text is not a formal sadhana, for Dzogchen Rinpoche taught against them at the end of his life. This is just a way of applying the teachings found in his treatise, or Shastra, if you prefer Sanskrit. Chenrezig's easy Dzogchen. Dzogchen is just a fancy word for the 3 styles of meditation. Meditations of awareness and letting go, meditations of bliss and letting go, and meditations of love and letting go. Chenrezig is the Tibetan name for Avalokiteshvara, and which could translate into English as kind gaze. We could think of Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig or kind gaze not as a god or a goddess, but simply an archetype of our capacity to completely master love and letting go. In this practice tonight, we're going to flip and flop between mantra meditation and silent meditation, so I think it only makes sense to begin by reviewing the mantra's meaning. Please chant with me. Om, I invoke the wish of ending money, jewel of love, and the purifying beamy lotus of letting go, supplicating with whom may love and letting go be mastered by all. Now, I think what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to make it non-italic, except for this final bit here. It was my Agent Smith growl. Tonight's first practice is known in Tibet as Lama, which translates into English as calling the teacher from afar. From a non-literalist point of view, this is a form of energy work that makes it quite easy to practice bliss and letting go, which is known by many names, including Completion Stage Tantra, Bindu Mahamudra, Anu Yoga, and Tikle, which translates as drop, which is short for simply channels, winds, and drops. This is also fits in the category, if you prefer Sanskrit. This could be described in Sanskrit as Tantra Alpak, or in Tibet as Nyu Gondro. Now, I'm not a linguist, so if you take exception with my vocabulary, my pronunciation, that's entirely your prerogative. So this is super simple. Consider this piece of art. This bronze image here represents our enlightened opportunity. The fact that we possess a central nervous system that's already wired for compassion and love and sympathetic joy and the balance of equanimity. Overhead, we see a couple sporting a tantric union, literally representative of the teachings, figuratively representative of real or imagined sensations of bliss or energy coalescing on or near the crown of our head. So as we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite this italicized bit, Lama, come to this crown. And our job is simple. We are going, as we silently and mentally recite this, we let our subconscious do the heavy lifting. All we need to do is simply this. As we exhale, we physically relax as best we can as we strive to chant these 12 syllables 4 times per breath together. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Now do not concentrate, but you may rest your eyes upon the word crown if you feel comfortable doing so. Or I should say, when you feel comfortable reciting the mantra. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. But what about silent meditation? Let's acclimate, just as you might get into a hot jacuzzi gradually. We're going to acclimate ourselves with silent meditation. Let us begin with a set of 2 metaphoric training wheels. We're going to review what we explored during, well, we don't have to, in the lesson where we talked about the seat of mindfulness is the portion of the thoracic region of our spinal cord known as the sympathetic nervous system. That's fabulous. Remember, it did not evolve for either extreme of mind blanking or concentrating. Instead, it evolved to simply notice, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. This vulnerability is communicated figuratively or symbolically by the nudity of this meditation archetype, which could be described in Sanskrit with the words samantabhadra, samantabhadri, karma mudra. So we mentioned there ain't no need to concentrate. It's actually a hindrance. Well, then what do we, if we're not going to concentrate on our breath, what do we do with our breath? Glad you asked. We treat our breath the same way a piano student treats a metronome. When we notice our body is spontaneously inhaling, we can silently and mentally recite the rather lengthy phrase inspired by Chogdud Tulku. Inspired by Tulku Tandap, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. And when we notice our body exhaling, we can silently and mentally recite the phrase inspired by Lama, Chodrak, Gyatso, and Chogdud Tulku, as well as Baka Tulku, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. This is a methodical set of practices, and by the time we're done within the next 60 or 70 minutes, we will have gone through our entire sense of self with a fine-toothed comb, metaphorically speaking, and come up with empty space in a way that makes it feel rather peaceful. But don't take my word for it. Practice with me and find out for yourself. Test my claims in the laboratory of your body and mind. Let's continue. We continue with the outer preliminary practices, which could be described in Sanskrit as Sutra Alpak and could be described in Tibetan as Do Ngondro. Let's see here. So rather than contemplating, we're just going to recite little blurbs as we inhale and then relax into the ultimate nature as we chant the mantra. This is the method inferred by Dzogchen Patrul Rinpoche in the final period of his life. Together, let's chant. Those who tread the path of Yang are usually when frighten us into an analog of morality. But upon this path of Yin, the awareness of stress fuels our empathy. Now, because I'm silly, I'm going to try something real quick. I'm going to hit wrap text, behind text, and give it the old oopsie. Well, that's weird. That did not go as planned. There we go. There. That's pretty. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Together. Those who tread the path of Yang use the awareness of interdependence to frighten us into an analog of morality. But upon this path of Yin, the awareness of causality reminds us that her love can lighten others' loads. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Together. Those who tread the path of Yang use the awareness of impermanence to frighten us into an analog of morality. But upon this path of Yin, the awareness of impermanence could fuel our wisdom of letting go. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Welcome to this evening's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. I will promptly ignore it, stumble upon it, point, and laugh. Together. Those who tread the path of Yang use the awareness of the preciousness of all meditation opportunities to frighten us into neurotic diligence. But upon this path of Yin we joyfully flow up from the effortless take two. But upon this path of Yin we joyously flow. Wow, I'm really having trouble chanting, folks. But upon this path of Yin we joyfully flow from the effortless effort of love-centered spontaneity. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Now let us remove the first of two metaphoric training wheels. During the lesson, we mentioned that thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, during each inhalation, we are already wired to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, as well as emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Some external, some internal, some physical, some mental, some pleasurable, some painful, some interesting, some boring, some glorious, and some grotesque. What do we do with this stuff? Thanks to our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord as well as the tippy top of the cervical region, we are wired during each exhalation, we are wired to both physically relax and mentally release. So we're going to review some of the figurative language we explored in the opening lesson. First, we're going to start with the literal before we move to the figurative. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during the previous inhalation, even if it is a sense of self, it could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, what's a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion, the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is quite non-graspable to the hand. As we breathe in, let us silently and mentally recite sitting tall, reminding our body to generate a vertical traction between our theches and our kappa. As we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite relaxing, and here this great irony is that physical relaxation sets the stage for mental release. But do not take my word for it. Put it to the test right now in the laboratory of your body and mind. Oh, I forgot to mention. So, this whole non-graspability thing, this whole emptiness thing, perhaps that is expressed symbolically with this archetype of enlightenment. And perhaps that is why it is painted as if comprised only of light. Translucent and non-graspable. The Tibetan description of this archetype would be Kuntu Zangpo, Kuntu Zangmo, Yabium. Let's continue. We turn now to our inner preliminary practices, which could be described in Sanskrit as Tantra Alpak, or in Tibetan as Gyu Ngondro. Let's chant. In our empathy we long to free all... Take 2. In our empathy may we long to free all beings from the tyranny of hate and craving and clinging. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. Together. In all pragmatism, may all liberation of all others be fueled by all reliance on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the insert tab. That's what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for another tab. And let's make this 18. And let's skedaddle over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what I'm looking for. Copy. And paste. Olay! Hey, man, that's what I'm talking about. So from the top. In all pragmatism, may all liberation of all others be fueled by all reliance on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students, described by the metaphor of the 3 wish-fulfilling jewels. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. Welcome to this evening's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. So here's the basic lowdown on the hoedown. During our inhalation, we silently and mentally recite this bit in italics, allowing our subconscious to do the heavy lifting. During our exhalation, we physically relax as best we can, while striving to chant these 12 syllables 4 times per breath. Don't worry, you'll get plenty of opportunities in the next several minutes. Together. Rather than squander on time and energy and defensiveness, how much wiser could it be to learn the lessons from all mistakes, the flow from the centered spontaneity of mindfulness and meditation? Not the mistakes, it's the lessons that flow from meditation. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. Squandred. That's a fun word. Okay. A life squandered in competition and greed leads not to peace and fulfillment. Better it is to live in cooperation and generosity. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. So, my first teachers were on the path of Yang, and they taught me to concentrate and to actively concentrate and actively contemplate. And what I noticed is for myself and their students and even them, they were cranky. And the reason for that is that concentration and contemplation cause our blood to pool at our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression, which really sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. But the great irony is that when we replace concentration with mindfulness, when we replace contemplation with meditation, the blood shifts to our anterior cingulate gyrus, just a few centimeters behind our forehead. It's the seat of empathy. Perhaps that is why the Tibetan teachers, the greatest Tibetan teachers, agree that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. And perhaps that is why the meditation archetype described in English as all good one, mother and father are depicted as beautiful. During our perceptive inhalation, let us silently and mentally recite, notice this. And during our releasing exhalation, let us silently and mentally recite, relaxing. Now, just because we're prone to empathy does not mean we are no longer capable of feeling the more grotesque emotions. What it means is, despite what we feel, we still choose against villainy. We choose not to wish others ill with our will. We choose not to use our will or our speech or our behavior or our commerce to harm others, regardless of how much harm they deserve. We choose not to be the instrument of their pain. I remember one time I was on the trolley and a very disturbed man threw racial slurs at some young men. And I implored the young man not to beat him into the ground, that he was a fool and he would come to a fool's end, but if they were the instrument of his destruction, the police would kill them or maim them and arrest them and all that kind of yucky stuff. We don't have to be the instruments of others' karmic retribution, literal or metaphoric. We can recognize the foolishness of fools and still have empathy. We can feel the full spectrum of human emotions in all its vulgarity and still choose to do the right thing. Let's practice. By the way, I once had a neighbor who was a fool, and he came to a fool's end. He said horrible things to nice people, but one day he said horrible things to horrible people, and they sent him to his next life. So it has been said that if we sit by the side of the river long enough, we'll see the ashes of our worst enemy float by on the way to its way to the ocean. Now, clearly, this saying comes to us from the distant land of India, but it holds true. We do not have to be the hammer of God. We can simply be honest to ourselves with what we feel, release what we feel, and default to empathy. For no one wishes to be born a fool. No one wishes to be born a malignant narcissist. No one wishes to be born a psychopath. And yet, many are. And they do harm. But like Typhoid Annie, from whom the population needed to be protected, just because she was a danger didn't mean she deserved punishment. And it's that type of distinction that will come to us effortlessly as a byproduct of mindfulness and meditation. As a child, I was brutalized. The people who brutalized me came to horrible ends. I did not have to play the Count of Monte Cristo. I did not have to avenge myself. They came to their own horrible ends. We do not need to be the great avenger. Instead, we can be the great empathizer. Let us bring the practice of, let's bring that which is known in India as Guru Yoga and that which is known in Tibet as Lama Naljor. Let's practice it. Let's bring it into the path of bliss and letting go, for it is actually just energy work. One moment. Om mani mimi yung 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 om mani mimi yung. At last, let us remove the second of two metaphoric training wheels. Consider the active manner with which She who is the color of a cumulus cloud sports in tantric union. This reminds us that spontaneity trumps contrivance. Consider the passive way in which our partner savors tantric union. This reminds us that the highest spontaneity is not scattered but centered. When our choices, utterances, and deeds flow with the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, our life could be very much like a vati, or like a real or imagined vati, or pure land, or paradise of Buddhist legend, or Max Feldparrish's brushwork. As we inhale, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and as we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. Welcome to this evening's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in the chat window. Being the clueless oaf that I am, I will ignore it for several minutes, notice it, and then point and laugh. Having climbed to contemplative cruising altitude together as a team, let us meditate as transformatively as General Leia Arcana upon Ajahn Class under the guidance of Luke Skywalker. Let us bring the experience of the four bases of mindfulness into the conventional path of love and letting go, where it is love that is emphasized. This is known by many names, including generation or creation stage, Tantra Mahamudra, Mahayoga, or Tokal's leap over jealousy. So here's what we're going to do. We've been working with mantras and italicized statements. These next 8 italicized statements are going to be deeply metaphoric. The only way they're going to make sense is to reverse engineer their metaphors into similes. Fortunately, we do that in the passage prior. Please join me. May all minds of all beings know me as peacefully wise as the mind of a Buddha of Lord, symbolized by a tikle, one syllable seed or bija mantra. Oh, so if this is your first time, allow me to give you a quick heads up. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite this italicized bit. We leave the heavy lifting to our subconscious. During our exhalation, we physically relax as best we can as we strive to chant these 12 syllables 4 times per breath. Om mani bimi yung, om mani bimi yung. So here's a really fun trick. Don't concentrate, that'll just make you cranky, but it's okay to rest. Once you become comfortable with this mantra, that might take you a week. Well, you can rest your eyes upon the noun wise, and it's amazing. as you begin relaxing into the recitation of the mantra, you'll feel like a great metaphysical rainbird on some guy's lawn, only instead of watering his greens, you'll be spritzing out the love, the wisdom, pervading all beings everywhere with wisdom. Literally, no. It's fun, but it's kind of a fun physiological metaphor, isn't it? Let's play with this. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. All right, let's move it on down the road together. May all relationships of all beings be as joyfully loving as a real or imagined Buddhist communication symbolized by the six syllable mantra. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. But wait, there's more. May all bodies of all beings that which are the beautiful, healthy, depicted in Buddhist thought. Of the blissful body of a Devi or Yadama, Flora, and archetype of enlightenment such as Chenrezig. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. May all circumstances or lots of all beings who have the good fortune or boon as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise, pure land of Auntie. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Allow me to share some magical thinking with you, disguised as physics. Wouldn't it be, so right now, humanity has the technological ability to ensure that every human being receives food, shelter, clothing, and all the medical care, education, and employment they desire. We just do not have the political will. In my country, in 1 week, in less than a week, in 4 days, all of the House of Representatives can vote to ban TikTok. But they can't seem to vote to support, to prevent homelessness or people going driven to homelessness because of medical bills, or school shootings, or stopping genocide. But we can ban a TikTok app. So in this world of ours, wouldn't it be cool if people armed with love and mantras could pervade the leaders of their land and all lands, to act with wisdom and the love to transform our world into a paradise? I love that idea. That idea makes my mouth water. How about you? Hello, Alessandro. Please forgive me if I butchered your name. It was not my intention. Let's practice. Oh yes, by the way, the literal translation of Kuntu Zangbo Yam Yum is all good one, mother and father. All good one, mother and father is not a god or a goddess. They are an archetype. Consider this. In the 12th century, if I remember correctly, Dogen Zenji taught that Zazen is enlightenment. In the 6th century, Prahe Vajra taught we are already enlightened. Both these men were using metaphors to express what neuroscience now verifies, that each of us have the sympathetic nervous system to practice mindfulness, the parasympathetic nervous system to practice meditation, and the anterior cingulate gyrus to practice empathy. We are already equipped to be the Buddhas we were born to be. Let's meditate. The purpose of the outer Lama is to introduce the student to the inner Lamas. And what are your inner Lamas? Your sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system, and your anterior cingulate gyrus. Welcome to the team. Again, we're going to bring the experience of the 4 bases of mindfulness, this time into the ultimate path of love and letting go, where it is letting go that is emphasized. And we leap over, this time what we leap over is the pride of self-grasping. Together. As we inhale, we can notice all minds, perceptions, emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings quite clearly. Yet as we relax into our exhalation, they can feel as non-graspable or void as a real or imagined bija seeds of light. This time, we're going to, as we rest our mind upon the capitalized noun, it could feel less and less graspable. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Oops, I got a little slap happy. Let's continue. As we inhale, take 2. As we inhale the input. Wow, having some trouble with my mouth. Just flushed my mouth and can't do a thing with it. As we inhale, the interpersonal experience of communication or speech could sound quite resounding. Yet as we relax into our exhalation, it could feel as non-graspable or void as a real or imagined mantra of light. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. As we inhale, our bodies or forms could feel quite sensual. Yet as we relax into our exhalation, they could feel as non-graspable or void as a real or imagined octopoium of light. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. As we inhale, all lots of circumstances could appear quite vivid. Yet as we relax into our exhalation, they could feel as non-graspable or void as a real or imagined paradise or body of light. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. As we inhale, let us rest, let us watch the play of mind, and as we exhale, let us relax into its non-graspable nature. Let us bring the illusion of the horizontal duality of us and them into the dance of impermanence and interdependence known as the yoga of inconceivability. All circumstances or lots could blissfully and impermanently melt into rainbow light that interdependently absorbs into this body or form. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. All forms of bodies could blissfully and impermanently melt into rainbow light that interdependently absorbs into this communicational speech. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. All interpersonal speech could blissfully and impermanently melt into rainbow light that interdependently absorbs into this light mind. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. All minds could blissfully and impermanently melt into rainbow light that interdependently absorbs into our vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although tantalizing to the eye, could be non-graspable to the hand. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. As we inhale, let us silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and as we exhale, let us silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. Let us bring the five aggregates into the path of awareness and letting go. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever body or form we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever feelings, such as pleasure, pain, or neither, we may have noticed during our inhalation, could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever appraisal of pleasure or pain's intensity or volume we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever impulse such as pushing, pulling, or clinging we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever awareness or perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, or imagining we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as not graspable as a vast empty void. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Let us watch the play of mind and relax into its non-graspable nature. Let us transcend the illusion of samsara and nirvana's vertical duality by metaphorically inviting all the real or imagined Buddhas, their paradises, and their denizens to dwell in the 84,000 pores of our skin, thus practicing the body mandala of duality's awareness and non-duality's release. Whoops. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Let us bring the 5 body regions into the path of awareness and letting go. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever lower abdomen we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as real or imaginable city syllable of green lights. Oh, through the magic of the internet, eh, kids? The screen's going to go nuts. I shall tend to it momentarily. Ooh, that's jumbo. Okay. There we go. That'll work. That's weird. That shouldn't be that big. Huh. That is weird. So, what's going on here? Oh, that's what's going on. Oh, maybe this is it. Maybe if I go over here. Meanwhile, you're missing out what's going on. I apologize for that. Here we go. Huh. Well, all right then. It's just weird. Okay, let's make that 150. Okay. Let's make that 125. Okay, that might do it. Okay. Copy and repair. Okay. Oh, money, baby, yung, 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 oh, money, baby, yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever navel we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as real or imagined Ranasambhava syllable drum of gold light. Well, here we go. Haha. All right. Om Mani Baby Yung, 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 Om Mani Baby Yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever just we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as real or imagined, Nakshobasillable Hungo blue light. Okay. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever threat we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as real or imagined, not made of syllable three of red light. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever crown or scalp we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as real or imagined, Vadojana subtle bloom of white light. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. Let's bring the 5 mental poisons into the path of awareness and letting go. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever jealousy we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as not graspable as all-accomplishing wisdom. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever pride we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as not graspable as equalizing wisdom. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever hate we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as not graspable as mirror-like wisdom. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever greed we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as not graspable as descending wisdom. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever confusion we may have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as not graspable as all-pervasive wisdom. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. My friends, I did far too much jibber-jabbering during tonight's live stream, and we're plumb out of time. So let us seal our practice. With the love that wishes for the universal mastery of Buddha's Eightfold Path. Together. May Whole Master letting go and love as well as kind communication, conduct, and calmness. May Whole Master the effortless effort of love-centered spontaneity as well as mindfulness and meditation. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up, and you could even help support this channel. In approximately 10¼ hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.